Good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Zacharias. I'm a museum educator here at the Campbell County Rockpile Museum. And I want to thank you all for coming out this morning for our events today that will pay tribute to the 25th Infantry Regiment and their time throughout the Powder River Basin. And then later today, most importantly, an event that happened 125 years ago, tomorrow, is the 25th Infantry's Bicycle Corps, what they now call the Iron Ride, from Fort Missoula, Montana to St. Louis, Missouri in 41 days. They passed through Gillette, stopping for lunch and rest at about 2:30 in the afternoon on June 29th, 1897. Later today, we will have Mr. Eric Cedeno, who is known online and throughout the world as the Bicycle Nomad. He is currently retracing that ride. He arrived in Gillette a little bit ahead of schedule last night, and he will be speaking to us this afternoon and then departing on June 29th for Moorcroft, just as the 25th Infantry did. Here at the Campbell County Rockpile Museum, we strive every day to embrace our role as members of the local community here in Gillette, in Campbell County, and in the state of Wyoming, and the entire Powder River Basin. We are dedicated to becoming a museum that is inclusive of all people, that offers itself as a civic space where people come together for conversations that can help overcome local and national divisions. It is our hope to be a place where everyone's story is told, but most importantly, a place where everyone's story is heard. For when we take a moment to truly listen to the experiences of others, those who may not look like us, talk like us, or even live like us, it is in those moments that we are able not to come to a place of agreement necessarily, but rather a place of understanding. A moment where, as the great Maya Angelou once said, do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better. Following the reading of General Order Number 3 in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, more than 2 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had gone into effect, approximately 4 million enslaved individuals were finally set free from bondage throughout the United States. Individuals like Mary Kercherval had been torn away from their families as sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers were sold and auctioned across the United States as chattel or personal property. Many would spend years trying to reunite with lost loved ones, writing letters to organizations such as the Freedmen's Bureau, while many were never able to reunite with their loved ones, as oftentimes names of the enslaved were not recorded, and the records merely state the individual's age and whether they were able-bodied or not. However, some, such as Mary, were able to find one another and head west to start their new lives together as free individuals. Mary Kercherval was born into slavery on August 16, 1833. Following her emancipation, she would later be employed for 2 years by George Custer at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, with her youngest son, Charley, by her side. During the 1876 Black Hills Gold Rush, Mary's sons, Samuel Kercherval and Benjamin and Levi Simpson, came to homestead and make a better life for all of them. Mary joined her 3 sons in what is now Spearfish, South Dakota, in an area called Centennial Prairie. Today, Centennial Prairie is the area around what is known as the High Plains Western Heritage Center, just off of Interstate 90 in Spearfish. We're excited to have Miss Kercherval here with us this morning to share more about her family's story and her life. Please welcome Miss Mary Kercherval.
Up above my head, there's music in the air. Up above my head, there's music in the air. Up above my head, there's music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. My name is Mary Kercherval. I was born Mary Templeton My daddy was Jeffrey, and my mama was Elvira. I was give to Benjamin Simpson, and I was Mary Simpson for a while. And then I was give to Jerry Kercherval, and I was Mary Kercherval for the rest of my life. You know, sometimes the devil like to play jokes on you. I worked for General Custer for 2 years after the war to free the slaves. But when he went to fight the war against the Ku Klux Klan in Kentucky, I terminated my employment with him because I knew about them there cluckers, and I did not want to have no more to do with them there cluckers. Now here I am in the twilight of my life, and there's rumors that the Ku Klux Klan is right here in South Dakota. They all over the United States. And I cannot believe how the devil is at work again. Well, I want to share a few of my memories with you. I have lived a good life, and God has blessed me richly. Now, my fondest memory was when I was working with General Custer, and my boy Charley, he was always underfoot. So I don't know where they got the idea, but all of the officers, you know, sometimes they had ladies around the camps, and the young officers was interested and favored the young ladies, and sometimes they would give Charley a quota to take a note, a fine gift, or a little nosegay to their lady friends. And if the lady friend decides she liked what she got, and she might even send something sweet back, Charley would get another quota because the young lady done sent something back to that young officer. I think Charley made more money that summer than I did. Oh, gosh. Lord is so good. So good. But sometimes you just have to go with what's in your life. Sometimes it's really hard for me to make sense of all of this. I was raised in the bottoms in western Missouri, and one day I was doing my chores just in the parlor, and I come across this here Bible. It was our family Bible. And I opened it up, and there was this here page right down the middle that have my name and my birthday, all of my children's names and their birthdays, and all the rest of the Nauer family chattel. Now, something really deep down inside of me said, God had intentions for me, and he did not raise me to be somebody to be counted like a hen or some cattle or horse. But there I was, dumbfounded. And I saw Levi's name wrote down. And his birthday was October 11th, 1852. Then Benjamin was born October 8th, 1853. Then I had a baby girl. I named her after my mama, Elvira. She was born October 14th, 1854. Then all over Kansas and Missouri, in 1855, there was this great upset about Kansas being a slave state or a free state. And it upset my birthday days in October as well. The next time I had a child, it was another baby girl. It was Luann. And I calls her my Christmas baby because she was born December 23rd, 1865. And that was all my Simpson children. Then I had 3 Kercherval sons, children. I had 2 sons and 1 daughter. Samuel, he was born July 5th, 1858, and I calls him my freedom baby. And then Belle, oh, she was so sweet. She was born September 10th, 1860. And my baby boy, Charley, well, he was born January 5th, 1863, and I calls him my Emancipation Proclamation baby because he was born the same year that President Master Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves. But since Missouri was a slave state in insurrection, we had to wait until after the war before we got our freedom in 1865. Now we stayed around Kansas and Missouri during Reconstruction. And then my boys heard about the gold rush up in Deadwood, and they decided they might just try their way out there. Now my eldest boy, my eldest Kercherval boy, Samuel, he come out in 1876. Now he was a root farmer, you know, potatoes and beets and carrots. We never did much like parsnips. Can't even say the word. But anyway, he also had other jobs. And then Benjamin and Levi come out and found some land to homestead on Centennial Prairie. Now that's just south of Spearfish. It's a really lovely place. Have real good land. Now 7 years later, I left Leavenworth where I had property with my sisters and a close family friend. And I come up here to join my family. Now, I thought that this place would be a whole lot better than the way we lived in Kansas and Missouri. There wasn't as many hardships, and people could get along a whole lot better up here. So me and my baby boy Charlie moved on the land that Samuel bought just south of Ben and Levi's places. And then 4 years later, I received a patent on the land that I had purchased. I went back to sell the house I owned with my sisters and a close family friend in Leavenworth. And then I come back and I purchased my own farm right here on Centennial Prairie for $150 in 1872. Y'all can come on in. There's lots of seats right there up front. It's so good to see you. Thank you for coming. Now, I received a patent on my land just 10 months later, and it was signed by the president, Benjamin Harrison. Now, I deeded it to my boy Charlie in 1895 and filed on a nearby piece of property in 1904. It was wonderful to live in Spearfish. We had wonderful neighbors, and it was so good to be with my family. Now, probably the proudest moment in my entire life was the year that the 25th Infantry did not ride through the hills like they did every year before, celebrating Emancipation Day. When they would ride through the hills, somebody important would make speeches, and a dignitary would read the Emancipation Proclamation. Well, this here one year that I was talking about, the 25th Infantry wasn't there. I think they was moved up to Montana somewhere. And it was a good place for the 25th Infantry because there wasn't as much going on with the 25th Infantry. There was a lot of, how can I say it, struggles maybe? Down there in Sturgis. And they sent the 25th Infantry away so they wouldn't have to be worried about it. So Benjamin found out that the 25th Infantry wasn't going to be going through all the towns in the hills. And he wanted to do something about Emancipation Day because we celebrated it every August the 1st. So my baby boy, Benjamin, he went to all of the merchants and businesses all through the hills, and he raised a lot of money so that we would be able to have a really nice Emancipation Proclamation Day. And the proudest moment, I wanted to stand up and cheer when I saw my boy Samuel reading the Emancipation Proclamation, and I know I was free. I knowed that God did have intentions for me never to be counted like I was a hen or a cow or a horse, because I was a human being. And the president, he wrote on the paper that said I was free. Lord have mercy. We had so much food that day. We had enough food to feed an army, but they wasn't there. We danced the night away. And all I can say is, up above my head, there's music in the air. Up above my head, there's music everywhere. Up above my head, there's music everywhere. There must be a God somewhere. Here I am in the twilight of my life. Done sold all my property. Sometimes I live up in Lead with my daughter Belle. She a nurse up there. And I stay with their family every now and then sometimes I move back down to where Samuel is and I stay with him. Now probably the most wonderful thing I can do these days is enjoy my family and drink lemonade in the shade. Up above my head, there's music in the air. Up above my head, there's music in the air. Up above my head, there's music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Now, I really did enjoy being in Spearfish. There was this one time, one of my granddaughters was in school. And, you know, usually my children, they was the only ones in their classes. And there was this one time where they was having all of these foot races. And my granddaughter wanted to have a foot race, but none of the children would race with her. So the president of the college took off his suit jacket and he challenged her to a foot race. He did. Oh yes, my children and my grandchildren, oh, I tell you, it was just marvelous to know that we could get along with all of the people who was there. As a matter of fact, sometimes we could not get along with all the people that was there. There was these people who want to take your land. So, you know, they was homesteaders, and as a homesteader, you gotta stay there for a certain amount of time. Well, this here one man, he decided he was gonna live on Benjamin's land and claim it as his own. Well, Benjamin said, that ain't true. So he took him to court. And do you realize that Benjamin's story outweighed that other man's story? And he got his land. Didn't have no land jumper there. Now, there was this here one time when my son hit this white man. And he decided that he was going to tell the truth about why this happened. Because the white man was making advances, unwanted advances toward this other white woman. And surely enough, my boy socked him in the nose. And when the white man tried to take him to court, he said, how you doing? No, he didn't say that. I just saw this here man come in and I thought I'd say, how you doing? I'm doing fine. It's always good to see you. Oh, yes. You're a nice looking man. Oh, but I'm at that age where I'm in my twilight years and I can just appreciate young men. Oh, now you's a real gentleman, ain't you? Mm-hmm. So what you doing here?
So I'm retracing the 1897 expedition of the Buffalo Soldiers by bicycle. They rode their bike from Missoula, Montana to St. Louis, Missouri in 1897.
I heard some about that. I was here then. Uh-huh. My name is Mary Kercherval. Uh-huh. And I lived on Centennial. I lived on Centennial Prairie. Sometimes I stay with my daughter Belle in Lead, and then sometimes I stay with my son Samuel on Centennial Prairie. And we know what's going on. We seed you guys. Yes, we did. We seed you on the bicycles. Mm-hmm. 1897, you say. Sometimes I get confused with my years, so. But yeah. Oh, it is so lovely to meet you. Oh, thank you so much. I was telling about my life in Centennial Prairie. So I guess I could go on with that because My son hit the man with the intention to kill. So when he was in court, now the sheriff tried to tell the court that he was not guilty. But my son said that he did have the intention to kill that man because he was not treating that woman the right way. So, even though my son decided to tell the truth and that he had the intention to kill that man, the court found in his favor and let him go because I guess it wasn't good for that man to have those unwanted attentions towards that woman, and that my boy was doing the right thing. Now, you know, I told my children that they all have to live by the Bible. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And I tell you, we always live by the Bible, and God favors us every single day of our lives. Up over my head, there's music in the air. Up above my head, there's music everywhere. Up above my head, there's music everywhere. There must be a God somewhere. This has been an exhausting day. You know, for my age, in the twilight of my life, I have to have naps throughout the day just so that I can see sunrise to sunset. Now, I see all of you wonderful people here, and sometimes I like to have conversations with the people who come to see me. So if you would like to visit with me, I would love to visit with you. My name is Mary Kercherval. What's your name? Pat Donison. And have you been up to Centennial Prairie?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it is beautiful. You should come up there sometime.
I'd love to.
Yes, yes. Pat, now, what's your name, honey child?
Brittany?
Brittany. And you just have the most beautiful smile on your face.
Thank
You're welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am from Nevada.
Oh, you're from Nevada. That's a long way away. Mm-hmm. What brings you up here to Wyoming?
The mines.
The mines? Oh, yes, there's a whole lot of gold. Mm-hmm. Up in there, up in the Black Hills?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason my sons come up. But we didn't go for the gold. They just know that the gold was here. We know that the money was in the land. Mm-hmm. We had 4, 5, 6, 7 relinquishments. We had lots of property. Mm-hmm. Oh, I interrupted you. You come up here because of the mines.
Because of the mines.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And here I am.
Would you like some lemonade?
I would love some lemonade.
All right, I'll give you some a little bit later.
I hope it's your special. Is it your special lemonade?
No, my daughter makes it for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
Yes.
I want to sit under the tree with you and drink lemonade.
Oh, there's plenty of room.
Great.
Yes, there is, Miss Brittany. Mm-hmm. Now, tell me your name.
My name is Eric.
Eric. And what brings you here? You already told me you was retracing the bicycle.
The Bicycle Corps of 1897.
Uh-huh. And I was up on Centennial Prairie then. I can't remember exactly where I was, but I had several pieces of land up there. Uh-huh.
Did you get to see them passing by?
I did. And you know, there was peoples out there and they was honking their horns and it was just something that was a sight to see. Yes. I can't remember how many there was. And we was just
There was 23 of them,
23.
and 20 of them were colored.
Now, they were so far away I could not see that well. But I know they was Buffalo soldiers. Mm-hmm. So I know they was good men. Mm-hmm. Now, ma'am, what's your name?
Sandra Holio.
Sandra Holio. And is this Mr. Holio?
Yes, it is.
Well, it's so nice to see you two here today. Can you tell me a little bit about yourselves?
My family homesteaded on the ranch.
Oh, just like we did, uh-huh. But we was farmers. So what'd you have?
Cattle.
Yeah, we had a few cows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And registered Herefords.
Mm.
And sheep.
Sheep, mm-hmm. Cows and sheep, they didn't get along that well. Mm-mm, mm-mm. You either had to have sheep or you had to have cows
Right.
because one would eat the grass from the other. So, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I am so glad that you came here today.
Thank you.
Oh, it is my pleasure to meet you.
Miss Mary, would you be able to tell us how you came across the family Bible and into its possession? How you got your hands on it?
Now, Mr. Stephen, I cannot tell you that. I cannot tell a lie because I don't know how I got it. Now, George Jefferson can tell you how she got her hands on the Noah family Bible. My name is Joyce Jefferson, and I portray Mary Kercherval, among other African American sheroes who lived in the Black Hills and made lives for themselves. South Dakota as well. I've been up to the Blair colony in Sully County. So I started doing research about African Americans in the Black Hills probably around 2000 or so, a little bit earlier than that. And I learned who some of the more prominent figures were. And I'm trying to remember, this is way into my career when I knew about the Noah Family Bible from the 2000s. However, when I got emboldened to find out more, I was on my way to Louisiana. I'm a member of the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary, and they were having a convention. And my route went through Western Missouri, and I said, oh my goodness, because I knew that the Bible was in Western Missouri in the museum there. So when I went to Western Missouri, I went to the museum, and all I could do is take pictures, one picture after another. And it wasn't like today when I got real emotional. It was just fact-finding. And I saw the Bible, and I took a picture of it. And evidently, the pages with the names of the Noah family chattel had been taken so many times, pictures had been taken of it so many times, that when you look at it, there's a cross on it of the names of all of the people who were owned by the Noah family. And I've been trying to piece it all together. So sometimes I get off track. So I took a picture of the front of the Bible, I took a picture of the back of the Bible, and I took a picture down the side of the Bible. And I had been telling Mary's story with this King James version of the Bible that I got off the internet. And then one day I said, maybe I could make a picture of that and attach it to my Bible, and then I could share it with everybody, because I've got a video that has a picture of the Bible, the real Bible, and that one page where all of the names were mentioned. And I was going to ask you if you could show it today, but I didn't think about it until I was on my way here. But anyway, that's how I found the Bible. I walked around Western Missouri.
So what museum did you find it in?
It was in the Western Missouri, some kind of, you can't miss it, there's only one museum in Western Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's what, 4th Street there? Just the one in the middle?
It's pretty good. It's a little bit bigger than that. But you could walk around Weston probably in about an hour if you were looking at everything. They do have a fire department. It's on the railroad, and I tried to make it to the river because it was along the river. And I think it was in 1855 where Weston was the last stop before going further west, and everybody would fill up there before they went on with their journey. Well, the course of the river changed, and it changed the lives of the people who lived there too. I'm not really sure what Mary did. I think that they were on a tobacco farm, because when I stopped at other places, they had lots of, there was this huge tobacco building that had lots of information in it. I guess there must be 2 museums, because they had the one with the tobacco and then one with a lot of artifacts. Is that enough?
Yeah, that's enough. That's the important part. That's what I wanted you to get across.
Yeah.
Because I'll talk about it.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to ask Joyce Jefferson? Yes, sir.
Yeah. What did you do before you picked this up? What you're doing now?
Okay. First of all, I did not pick this up. And I will tell you why I say that. So my daddy was in Hawaii, and I was grown, and I went back to live with my daddy. I met this man who used to play pinochle with my daddy. As a matter of fact, my daddy introduced me to him, and when he introduced himself to me, he said, "Hello, my name is Earl Toussaint Don Juan Louverture Jefferson III, but people just call me the baby." And I said, "Whoa, who is this man?" So we started dating and we got married. And Uncle Sam decided he had been in Hawaii long enough. I didn't think that I had been there long enough. He had been there for 5 years. And they sent us to South Dakota, of all places, is what the brochures said. So one day we were exploring the Black Hills, and we went to one of the museums. And we went to the Fort Meade Museum because we knew that the Buffalo Soldiers had been there. We walked all through the museum looking at all the pictures, all the artifacts. We didn't see anything that was evidence of us, the Buffalo Soldiers, being there. I was so disappointed. And then we went through, right before you go to the gift shop, the last exhibit, and there was this huge panoramic picture with all of these Buffalo Soldiers astride horses, and they were all dressed in white. And in my ignorance, I said, "Aw, we could only be cooks." Well, come to find out, they were not cooks. It was a medical detachment, and they were all medics. And they were probably going out in the field making sure people got well, got medical attention that they needed, instead of being cooks and them having to fight for their lives after they ate what they had for dinner. But anyway, as we were riding back to the base, I told my husband, you know, there's a lot of Black history in these hills, and somebody ought to write about it. It picked me. I did not realize that I had been writing, or I had spoken my future. And one thing just led to another. There was an excavation for a homestead that belonged to Catherine Reynolds. And it's between Spearfish and Deadwood. And for those of you who know about that area, it's between Hannah and Savoy. And I had just portrayed Sojourner Truth probably 3 months ago, before, and I had borrowed clothes from the Performing Arts Center. And I decided that I would go on this excavation, this Passport in Time excavation with the people who had invited me. And on the last day, I decided to put on Sojourner Truth's clothes and walk around the property as if I were Catherine Reynolds. And I saw all of those little red flags all over the place. And I was indignant. What are you doing on my land? And the adults there came up to me. Oh, Aunt Kate, we are so happy that you were here. Let me show you this. Let me show you that. And then the kids who were on the excavation said, you're not really her, are you? And yeah, I was called out. So that was one thing that I did, and I started to portray Catherine Reynolds. And the person who was lead on the Passport in Time would get engagements for me to go to do or to tell Catherine's story. And I'm not sure when I stopped telling Catherine's story. Excuse me, I'm tired. But I went to another museum in the hills, and that brings me full circle because I had been out somewhere and I had, you know, when you still had messages on your phone when you got home, there was all of these messages from this man from Spearfish who said, we need your help. We want you to come here. Now, I live in Rapid City, which is about 60 miles from Spearfish. And he had all of these African American artifacts, and he wanted me to work with him. And I said, well, do you think you could get a grant? And he said, I don't believe in grants. And I'm thinking, you want me to come here 3 or 4 times a week, and gas was not $5 a gallon then, and I was stingy about my money, my time. And I thought, well, you know, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. So as I drove back to Rapid City, I called the executive director of the Journey Museum, and I made an appointment with her. And when I told her about my experience at the other museum, she pitched me, picked again. And we got a group together, and we worked for 2 years to get an exhibition called Corporals, Cooks, and Cowboys. There was a book that came from it. The exhibition, I always get the expedition, exhibition, and excavation mixed up, and I'm at the age where it makes a difference, but I can't figure it out. But anyway, so we had the exhibition, and it lasted for 6 weeks, and we did something different every week. And Lucretia Marchbanks, another person that I portray, there was this 6-foot picture of her. And they would have school children come in, and I would stand in front of her picture in a dress that looked like hers. And the kids would all sit down and they would say, and then I would tell her story. I didn't know very much of her story then. And then when I would finish telling her story, the kids would say, "Is that you in that picture?" And I'd say, "No." And they would say, "You can't be 150 years old." And that's pretty much where I started telling every other person's story that I knew about. My husband passed away. I'm making it smaller for you because I forget a lot. My husband passed away in 2015. And I was laying in the bed one night, and this voice came to me and said, "How dare you? You don't know enough about us to tell our story." So I took it as, oh, I better stop doing this. And then right after I heard that, maybe a couple of months, the executive director from the High Plains Western Heritage Center, who was a different person than the one who wanted me to volunteer, called and said, "Is this Joyce Jefferson? Oh, I hope you're the person that I need to talk to." And I said, "Yes, this is Joyce Jefferson." "Well, we have all of these busloads of Rhodes Scholars that come here, and they want to know about African American history, and we don't have anybody to tell the story of the African American." I said, "Oh, I don't do that anymore." She said, "You don't?" And I told her about how this voice came to me and how I wasn't supposed to be doing it anymore. Then Juneteenth, this was in February, Black History Month, Juneteenth, my friend called me, who we had worked together, but she was now in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. She said, "Joyce, you should see all of these African American women. They are dressed in period clothes, and they are talking period talk, and you could hold your own with them." It was like, oh, well, maybe I'm not supposed to not be doing it. Maybe I need to be learning more so that I could tell their story better. So, oh, thank you. So I called Carla back, and we made arrangements for me to do a story about the African Americans. Well, she wanted Mary Kercherval because she homesteaded on Centennial Prairie, where all of these Rhodes Scholars were coming to learn about African American history. And I thought, well, yes, she's important, but so was Sarah Campbell. She was the first documented non-Native woman to come into the Black Hills of South Dakota with the Custer expedition. And then we've got that 6-foot picture of Lucretia Marchbanks. Why not include her too? So now I tell the stories of Sarah Campbell, Lucretia Marchbanks, and Mary Kercherval whenever they invite me. And it's been a real experience for me. And like I said, it picked me. And it seems like every time something happens here, I may go back and decide, well, this isn't for me, and then something else will call my name again. So it's been a wonderful time together. Had it not been for Stephen, who remembered me when he came here, we were in this contest about the most misunderstood person in history. And I thought I would portray Sarah Campbell because Sarah Campbell always said, "I was the first white woman to see the Black Hills." And I'm probably a whole lot darker than she may have been, but she claimed to be. No.
That one picture that you're light skinned compared to her.
No. I think she's my brother's color. And he's more caramel and I'm more chocolate. Or maybe is it mocha? Now you have to understand that I did not grow up with an African American community. So when people who did grow up in an African American community and they talk about people who are red bone and, oh, what's the other one? There's another term that they use. It doesn't make sense to me because I never learned it when I was growing up. So, anyway.
Yeah, Sarah Campbell, she prescribed to the one-drop theory. She was interviewed by a reporter from the Chicago Inter-Ocean, and she said that because of how she came into this world, she has white blood in her. So she prescribed to the one-drop theory. As long as I got one drop, I'm a white person. There was also another thing that Sarah Campbell was the first non-native woman to enter the Black Hills on record. So she was the first white, black, anything other than native woman to go into the Black Hills. That's where that came from.
So we were in this contest about the most misunderstood person in history, and I went there. And Stephen was there as well. And he won first place. And who were you?
I was a hunter from the Astoria company by the name of John Day. It was a national competition in Reno, Nevada.
And we have an argument about this. I say I came in last, and he says I came in third.
No, you officially got second place.
No.
Oh, yeah, you did get third, right. Yeah, second place was the lady who did, the lady who started
the Girl Scout, Juliet Lowe, right.
I thought you were going to win, though.
Oh, thank you.
It's true. I was surprised you didn't.
Well, I didn't know my story well enough, probably. And I could not confidently explain why I was the first white woman and the most misunderstood.
Yeah, it was an intimidating crowd, I agree.
Right, and I was not brand new, but I was just trying things on.
It was also super challenging. It was nothing like what we witnessed here today. They did it like American Idol, so there was a panel of judges and an audience. You got up, the panel of judges got to ask you whatever they wanted to ask you, and you had to answer as that person. And then you had 3 to 5 minutes when they said go to explain yourself. So then the audience at the end of the night voted in a shoebox, and they determined the winners from there. So it was not an easy competition for anything.
But that was 2013, and then when Stephen came here, he invited me to come and portray African American people so that it would enlarge his audience, the diversity of the Powder River Basin. I got it right. Oh, thank you. So it's really been a wonderful journey, and I've had my ups and let me tell you the greatest part about how all of this has come together. So I was sitting at my computer, and there was this email that came in that said, "For my daughter, not spam." Huh? For my daughter, not spam. So this woman asks me if I was born in South Dakota and could her daughter portray me because she was chosen, she had been given South Dakota and she needed to do a wax museum project. And she had to find somebody from South Dakota, born in South Dakota, who was an influential person. And I'm thinking, that ain't me. So I said, nope, I'm not from South Dakota. None of the people that I portray are from South Dakota. Nope. So then she writes me back and she says, I asked Lyric's teacher if we could use you because you've lived in South Dakota a long time. So I said, okay. So then we went back and forth with emails, and it was really interesting because she finally did get her wax museum project together. I sent her some information about myself so that she could do her research. And her mother said, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the internet, so we just need a little bit of information like when you were born." And so, true to Lucretia Marchbanks and other Southern women, I told her my birthday is August 30th. Now, as Lucretia Marchbanks would say, if a woman tells you her age or give you her recipe, you just can't trust her. So I am very trustworthy. My birthday is August 30th. But then I think people, huh?
I'm going to remember that.
That's right. And Lucretia Marchbanks was very trustworthy too. So at the end of the period where she was doing her research, her mother and I became friends on Facebook, and I could watch the child lyric portray Joyce Jefferson portraying Sarah Campbell. Now, is that not a full circle moment? It was really cool. So I have truly been blessed, truly. And I thank you all for coming here today and giving me your attention and learning more about Mary Kercherval.
Thank you, Ms. Joyce. I really appreciate you doing this. We did ask her, as I mentioned before, we are trying to celebrate the 25th Infantry, specifically their time in the Powder River Basin, and this program really highlights it. The 1883 to about 1887 was the most boring time for the regiments in the Powder River Basin, especially the 25th Infantry. Month after month after month, the monthly report is no change. That's what they send back to Washington, D.C. From Fort Meade in Sturgis to Fort McKinney over in Buffalo, all the way up to Fort Missoula. No change, no change, no change. But the one thing that did occur every single year throughout the 1880s and the 1890s, from Sheridan to Casper, from Buffalo to Deadwood and Sturgis, was the 25th Infantry Regiment Band would participate in parades and ballroom dances and speeches and parties, all related to emancipation. Now, the thing was a little bit different here in the Powder River Basin. So some places in our country in the 1880s and 90s are celebrating Emancipation Day on September 23rd. That's when Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was signed. In other parts of our country, they celebrated on January 1st because that's when it went into effect. Well, in Wyoming, especially in northeast Wyoming or over in Sturgis or Deadwood, who wants to have an outdoor celebration in Casper, Sheridan, Sturgis, or Wyoming on January 1st? Not a whole lot of people. Who wants to come out and risk it on September 23rd? Still not a whole lot of people. So what happened here in the Powder River Basin was they adopted the English, as in British English, Emancipation Day of August 4th from the 1830s, when they declared emancipation for all the enslaved of the United Kingdom of England. So that day was picked because it happens in August, and that's a great time to have outdoor celebrations in our region. So they would have parties in Casper, they would have parties in Sheridan. They would go all through the night in Sheridan. They would actually use the theater. They would go in and celebrate with music in the evenings there, in addition to the parades and everything else. But throughout the 1880s, you see articles in the daily Black Hills Times reporting on the celebrations that were had, and the 25th Infantry Band. And keep in mind, except for the officers, they are all black soldiers marching through Deadwood and marching through Sturgis and being celebrated in the press. Now, Joyce did mention at one point there wasn't enough 25th Infantry left at Fort Meade because they had all been sent to different places into Montana. One of the things that the 25th Infantry did in this region was they stopped fighting. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the 9th and 10th Cavalry and think that's all there was to Buffalo Soldiers. The 24th Infantry Regiment and the 25th Infantry Regiment were Buffalo Soldiers as well, in addition to the 9th and 10th Cavalry, but they didn't ride horses. And they're not cool and flashy and fun to watch on TV, right? These were infantry soldiers. They hiked, and in the case we'll find out about later this afternoon, sometimes they bike. But mostly it's by foot, and there's nothing fancy about that. Their job in our region was to escort wagon parties, to escort stagecoaches and provide security for them. And if some homesteaders and some natives started to get into it a little bit, they showed up and we're there to keep the peace, be the police force. In northern Idaho, they would be used to enforce martial law in the silver mining camps. So they were really community service police force in our region for all intents and purposes. And the Black Hills Daily Times reported from Deadwood, Dakota territory, the morning of August 2nd, 1883, Emancipation Day was celebrated in a very happy and successful manner yesterday by our colored citizens. Owing to the inability of the members of the 25th Infantry to appear in force, no parade, unfortunately, was had. In the afternoon, very interesting exercises took place at the Elephant Corral. A dancing pavilion had been erected and was in constant use by numerous dancers who kept time to Skill's orchestra. Orations were delivered by Judge G.G. Bennett and W.L. Hamilton, Esquire. Samuel Kercherval, a local colored man, was the reader of the Emancipation Proclamation. In the evening, a dance took place in the dining room of the French Hotel and was largely attended. General Fields acted as marshal of the day, and his splendid horsemanship, military bearing, and generally excellent appearance was the theme of much favorable comment. General Fields was a moniker given to a black man who had been a soldier during the time of the Civil War and eventually made his way to the Black Hills. There's no evidence that he was actually ever a general. That was just a moniker that he was given while living in Deadwood because he was a veteran. I really appreciate Joyce coming and telling this story today. And to mention about the Bible. As we mentioned in the introduction, many citizens that were born in America, born into slavery, were merely recorded as 15-year-old male, able-bodied, 8-year-old girl, able-bodied. It's very rare that an owner would include the chattel's name in their family Bible. That page that Joyce is referring to, you may have seen in your own grandparents' Bible of this is your family tree, and this is when everybody was born, and this was their birthdays. There wasn't a lot of that for the enslaved. And so it's very unique when you do come across an owner's Bible that has the names of that 15-year-old able-bodied boy or that 8-year-old able-bodied girl. It's very rare. So for a lot of us, on my paternal side of the family, I've been able to go back to the 1500s with just the men and women that were on my dad's side of the family. A lot of Americans in 2022 can only trace back 2 generations, because by the 3rd generation, 15-year-old able-bodied male is all they run across. Now, it's also not recorded to history or known to us at this time what Mary's task officially was while she was enslaved, but because of the listing in the Bible and using history, we can assume, and it's pretty much backed up by the Bible that was found, Mary was breeding stock. Her assignment was to have a baby every October. Certain events and certain things took place that she wasn't always able to produce a child every October, And there was other times where if they could get a second child out of her in one calendar year, they would attempt that. We only have the names of some of the children because it's only one owner's family. The children that were purchased and brought to that owner that recorded it, recorded who was there prior and then who was born while they owned her. Again, the humanity is what we're trying to give back to Mary and to Mary's children, because Samuel wasn't just a colt that Mary gave birth to. Samuel was a man who came, homesteaded on the same spot that there's now a museum dedicated to spearfish history. And that's why we're doing what we do today, because we have to say their names. You die twice. Once on your actual day of death, and the second time is when nobody says your name anymore. So I really hope that you grab some food. We got some food trucks out in the parking lot all set up, ready to go. We'll have another program with Eric Cedeno, our special guest, who is rewriting that 1897 iron ride to St. Louis, Missouri. That came right through here tomorrow, 125 years ago. So thank you all very much, and hopefully we'll see you this afternoon inside.